Good day to you. The, Today's lecture is gonna be in psychology. That's my baby, right? I am Dr. Canute White. You're listening, you're watching Canute's Exploration. Your topic in a podcast is learn a bit. Just want to teach a bit, and have you learn a bit. Yeah, so it's all about that. Still Canute Exploration, your topic in a podcast, looking at some academic topics. Look, attribution theory. Attribution theory is a very important part of the whole aspect of psychology because, as you know, psychology is a study of human and animals' behavior, right? You could say the scientific study of human and animals' behavior. I used to lecture in psychology. I've spent over 20 years lecturing in psychology at the university level. And I've been talking about attribution theory for a number of years now in my classroom. So we're going to be looking at attribution theory today. The aim is for you to learn, to understand why your friends, your co-workers, your neighbors, and other persons around you behave the way that they behave, and to reduce your judgment, about the person, and to understand that there's a what we call psychology of individual differences. So therefore, not everybody is the same. Not everyone is going to be like you. You have to appreciate differences and appreciate why people behave the way they do. And that's what we're going to be looking at as it relates to attribution theory today. Attribution theory. Elizabeth Harper. You can click on the link, read more in the description, and read up about some of the other things that she have said. But she said that in psychology, attribution is a judgment, right? It's really a judgment that we make, that you and I make about other people, right? As we said, psychology is a study, scientific study of the behavior of human beings and animals. So we also make attribution about animals. Don't forget that animals also behave, right? And another time we look at types of behavior, covert and overt behavior. But we talk about that another time. Don't get into that. But it's really the judgment that we make about why other persons behave the way they do, and that's attribution. And attribution theory, we should be talking about today, explain these attributions, that we possess, and and the processes of these attribution, which we use to understand why people behave the way they do and why events actually happens. Let's look at a number of scenarios. You're at the airport, a large airport, right? Think about one of those, the largest airport you have ever been or you know about. And this lady, our gentleman for that matter, running through the airport, pushing away everyone. And you said to yourself, wow, this lady is rude. This man is rude. She's just angry. And when you enter the plane, you saw her, and you said to the person beside you, hey, that lady, that man is angry. It's so rude. But guess what happened? Not necessarily so, right? And look at the scenario where Mary behaves aggressively, or that same lady behave aggressively. You see her at church, you see her at a school function, you see her in the community, and she behaves similar ways. So think about about those scenarios, right? I call this scenario about Mary behaving, or that lady behaving, or gentleman for that matter. Let's not get gender bias here. Behave the same way in most behavioral settings. I call that the always factor, right? So the always factor is sort of different from that one incident, that or occasional incidents that you may see of that person, and we look at personality, eventually, because personality suggests a consistency in the pattern of behavior. The consistency in your behavior. Think about your personality. If you think about your personality, you'll realize that there's some consistency in your behavior, and you call it a some stay. That's how I am, right? So you figure that's your personality. But if you do something at a particular time, that's, oh, I don't usually do this. It's because you did this to me, right? I mean, that's sort of situation. So I'm just trying to look at the always factor, different from the what I'd call a sort of a one-off situation. So we're looking at attribution theory, right? And we talk about attribution as judging others and so on. But why he or she? Why your spouse? Why your neighbor? Why your friend? Right? Your co-workers, the man on the bus, right? The man you pass on the street, the stranger you don't know really, right? Well, the stranger behave in that sort of way. It could be either her personality, which we call disposition, a sort of a consistent pattern of behavior, right? It's innate, inborn, right? It's somewhat something that has been a part of the individual from birth. Psychologists talk about developing a particular personality type between 1 and 5. That Sigmund Freud looking at that. But another time we look at that. But it can be also the situation, the environment, the circumstances, that is, or the conditions which the person um, are find are themselves, himself, herself in. So what I'm saying to you is that the attribution, the judgment that you make, you have to be careful, because we could be wrong, right? And later on, I'll tell you how to test that judgment to find out if you're right or wrong. Hey, just stay tuned and listen to the end. And I tell you this, this whole personality thing, you have to understand the difference. A person's personality speaks to the consistency. I perhaps reiterating this, right? It speaks to the persistence, right? The persistency of the person's behavior, right? Persistent pattern of behavior. Keep going on, a pattern of behavior that is there, right? Perhaps a redundant to say persistent pattern of consistent pattern of behavior, but really it has been said in a number of psychology literature like that to perhaps emphasize the importance of looking at it from this perspective. So personality means it happens. It's a oh, on and on and on. Continuously, perhaps continually, right? Because the situation varies, and therefore, a person's behavior, the reason for someone to behave the way he or she does, can be, I don't want to say attributed, can be the result of the person's personality or the situation. That is the disposition, which is internal, or the situation, which is external, right? And I picked up something online, right? Just browsing through, I saw it. It didn't really have a sort of a clear source to me, but I think it's a good way to explain this. And if you continue to read along, click on the description, the links in the description that says read more, and you'll be able to see a number of concepts that align with this attribution theory. Internal, it can be person's behavior can be a matter of internal. The reason why the person behave the way they do, because of internal, which simply means the person is behaving in a certain way because of something about the person. It's the person, it's you, it's she, it's your neighbor, it's your co-worker. So them stay. That's how the person stays. That's how the person behave usually, right? So it could be that, not taking that away from you, know. It could be that. It could be the person's personality. Person annoying him, man, that's how the person is. Aggressive him, man, yeah, that's how the person is. Yeah, rude, that's how the person is, right? You know, other bad things and good things too, right? You can say the person is admirable. It could be personality, right? The person is polite. Yeah, so let's not just chum the bad things, right? Because personality could be good and bad, positive or negative. But what I'm saying to you is that it could be the person's personality, why the person behave the way he or she has behaved. Um, and it could be the situation that the person is in, the situation, the circumstances, the state of affair, what's going on around the person that allow the person to behave in a particular way, that allow the persons to exert a certain emotion because of the situation. But that is not usually the person's personality. That is not usually the person's behavior in our setting. The always factor, as I call it, right? That is not that. So the situation really infers that the person behave in a certain way because of something about the situation, and let's assume that almost everybody would respond in the same way based on that situation, right? So, like, if you if you touch a stove and it's hot, you'll behave in the same way, in that way, because, and maybe use an expletive, right, or something, because hey, wow, and most people more likely behave in the same way. So that would be a sort of a situational attribution, and not a personality or dispositional attribution. So I want you to understand, persons behave a certain way in for two reasons based on attribution theory. Because of the person's personality, who they are, the consistent pattern of behavior, the innate disposition of the person, or the situation, the conditions that the person find themselves in, the state of affair, or the environment create that sort of a behavior. So it's not always the person. So remember that when you attempt to judge others, think about that. We'll talk about how you test to see if you're correct, whether it's the internal or the external, whether it's the situation or the dispositional. Yeah, we'll look at that. Just continue to listen. I will tell you how you test to see if you're correct. All right. This is Canute Exploration, your topic in a podcast, and this is the Learn a Bit segment. I am Dr. Canute White, trying to let you understand why your friends and others around you behave the way he or she does. Okay? So we talk about persons behaving the way he or she does based on that person's personality or the situation around that person. But look at personality a little deeper, right? Won't go too deep, because at one point I will come back and lecture and aspects of personality. But psychology today suggested that personality can change, and I believe that. Right, I'm one of the psychologists that believe that personality can change, and over lifetime, eventually it change. And I believe that that change is based on additional experience that you have, and therefore it shapes you in a different form. And when I lecture on an attribution theory, I always look at the fact that situation can alter your personality. Yeah. So, but that situation will not alter your personality um, uh, quickly, right? It will an overtime thing. It will take a very long time. Um, it will gradually, change your personality. But look, psychology today suggested that, right? Personality can change over time, but your core personality, your core personality, that deep rooted personality of who you really are, yeah, will remain relatively consistent, relatively consistent during your adulthood. As your child get older, that his or her personality will change, but there's this first type of personality that will continue and become consistent over time. Education, what education does is really to change your attitude, to indoctrinate you. And again, I won't flip into that much, but behavior and attitude is two different things. They are two different things. Remember that always, right? Your attitude shape your behavior, influence your behavior, but your behavior and your attitude is not the same. Think about that. We'll talk about that another time. Send me an email now and remind me to have a lecture on that, so that I can let you understand the distinction between um, attitude and behavior. So when people say, I don't like your attitude, all right, maybe they mean your behavior, but really it's two different things. But yeah, so that changes over time. However, Britannica suggested that personality is a characteristic way of thinking. Characteristic, yeah? That's part of you. That your thought process, that's part of you, your feeling and behavior. And another thing that you need to understand, our actions are basically based upon our thought process, what we think, yeah? And how we feel about what we think, and then we act it out. Hey, yeah? TFA, thought, thoughts, feelings, and actions. Yeah, psychological students know about that. Psychology students will tell you that's our behavior. That's what drives our behavior, right? Um, so we think, we feel how we feel about what we are thinking, and then we act that out. So that also speaks to personality, and that can be looked at on the situation as well. This whole TFA thing. But let's continue the journey, looking at attribution theory, and now we are going to observe how we test attribution. That judgment that you make, yeah, about the person's behavior, why the person behave the way they behave, and the attribution theory is gonna explain why you do that, and really the process, and if you, well, if you really are correct with your judgment, right? And Kelly's theory of attribution is a theory that I love to look at when I teach this in my psychological lecture, um, at university and so on. I believe that this theory is so simple. The simplicity of the theory allow you to understand, and how to test the correctness of your attribution towards a person's behavior, as it relates to whether the person behaves that way based on the person's personality or the situation. According to Kelly's theory of attribution, there are a number of things that need to be looked at. The first one, uh, Kelly mentioned, is consensus. Consider consensus, according to Kelly. And what consensus is: the extent to which the person behave in the same way in a similar situation. Think about it. Think about you. To what extent do you behave the same way in a particular, in the similar situation? Yeah, wherever it happen. If the situation happen at church, at school, at home, do you behave the same way? Right. An example that Kelly gave was Alison smokes a cigarette when she goes out for a meal with her friends. If her friends smoke, her behavior is high in consensus. If only Alison smokes, it is low. And I'd like to push forward to a slide that I have, and then I will go into this, because it's important that you understand this from the perspective of a chart that I'd like to slip into for a while. And this chart, I will try to explain it, right? We said that Kelly talk about three things, right? That you need to look at in order to test if your judgment is right as it relates to why an individual behave the way he or she behaves. And consensus, consistency, and distinctiveness, those are the three things. But according to Kelly, right, the if consensus is low, consistency is high, and distinctiveness is low, then it's internal, it's the person's personality. And if you can write that down, according to Kelly, if consensus is low, consistency is high, and distinctiveness is low, then it's the person's personality. So you would be right. And however, if consensus is high, consistency is high, distinctiveness is high, then it's the person, it's the situation, it's external. So if you have all high in terms of the consensus, consistency, and distinctiveness, then it's external. It's not the person's personality. And if you have a low, which is in consensus, one high, which is in consistency, and another low, which is in distinctiveness, then it's the person's personality. So that consistency is high. You see it? Consistent pattern of behavior. Don't forget that. However, you might be uncertain, right? If the uncertainty comes when it relates to the consistency. If the consistency is very low, and you are not seeing any consensus, and you're not seeing any distinctiveness, according to Kelly, there's some uncertainty there. So let's go back to Kelly as it relates to consensus, right? So we talk about consensus. So this consensus that Kelly is talking about is really the extent to which other persons behave in the same way in a similar situation. And we talk about Alice is smoking when she goes for a meal, and her friends, if her friends smoke, her behavior is high in consensus. So consensus mean agreement, right? Look at it from that perspective. You see, when you learn, you have to relate things to practical situation to what the concept. So so you will understand it better. So consensus, agreement. So if that agreement is high, yeah, look at it, high. Everybody does it. We agree with doing it. If it is low, oh, well, not everybody does it. I mean, few people. She alone. In this case, one person, right? So the next thing that Kelly looks at is distinctiveness, right? That distinctiveness that Kelly talks about, right? The extent to which the person behaves in the same way in similar situation, distinction. Yeah, is it that the person behaves the same way in similar situation? You can distinguish. Um, this, it's distinctive as it relates to how the person behave in situations. If Alison only smokes when she's out with friends, her behavior is high in distinctiveness. It's different, right? In terms of where she smokes, she does smoke when she goes out with friends. If she smokes at any time or places, distinctiveness is low, right? So look at it, and we're talking about testing attribution, finding out if you are correct as it relates to how you judge others, as it relates to the person's behavior, right? Is it the person's personality or the situation? So we said people behave the way they do based on their personality or the situation, the environment which they find themselves in. So the next thing that he talked about, well, Kelly's theory suggested, stipulates, is that of consistency, right? The concept of consistency, which is the extent to which the person behaves like this every time the situation occurs. So every time the situation surface, then this is how the person behaves, right? Every time the person is late, the person drive fast, right? If Alice want to smoke when she is out with friends, consistency is high. If she only smokes on, some special occasion, then consistency is low. So let's look at this a bit, you know, um, deeper with sort of a density. According to Kelly, theory of attribution, we talk about attribution being a judgment, the way you think that people behave the way they do, others behave the way they do. And attribution theory basically explain the process and explain why you make that sort of judgment. So consensus, if everybody in the audience is laughing, the consensus is I. Everybody's doing it. Agreement. If only Tom is laughing, consensus is low. If only Tom is laughing, then the consensus is low. Right? Distinctiveness. If Tom only laughed at this comedian, the distinctiveness is I. Yeah, because here's a difference. It's just this person, just at this time, this comedian only. Just laugh at Oliver Samuels or Johnny Daly and nobody else. If Tom laughs at everything, every time, all of the comedians, all the comedians, then distinctiveness is low, right? The difference, the disparity is not wide, yeah, so to speak. Let's use disparity. If consistency, right? If Tom always laugh at this comedian, consistency is high. Tom, it doesn't. Then the consistency is tend to be low. So we can look back at the chart to understand this. So as it relates to consistency, consensus, and distinctiveness, according to Kelly's theory, you can do some more reading. Click on the link that says read more in the description, and you'll be able to understand more of what I am saying in this lecture today on why people behave the way they do. So I'm saying, based on Kelly's theory of attribution, that if consensus is low, consistency is high, distinctiveness is low, then it's the person's personality. It's who the person is. That's why the person behave like that. And if all three are I, then it's the external. It's the person's situation. So it's critical to consider this. And, I'm happy that you will no longer judge people just like that, but you will consider these things that Kelly's talked about and had written about, and you'll understand that not every time someone does something it is the person's personality. It could just be the situation. What do you think? Send me an email, no? wradio668@gmail.com. I am Dr. Canute White. This is Canute Exploration, your topic in a podcast. Learn a bit segment. Just teaching you a bit. If there's anything that you would want me to talk about in psychology, send me an email and I will talk about it for 30 minutes. Okay, thanks for listening. Enjoy and be careful how you judge. Consider attribution theory. Read some more about it.